These are the four broad categories under economic factors. First one is investment. If you want to achieve development or growth, now we can use as a synonym. ठीक है? Growth and development, because motive is same. So while discussing this topic, we can use growth and development as a synonym, because our motive is same, development, in and in itself. So you cannot write, you just for the understanding purpose. First one is investment. Why investment is important? Why investment is important? Because investment plays an important role in your third point, that is capital formation. So first 3 points are interlinked. Capital formation, like suppose you remember this bank, these are savings and these are investment. What is the role of bank? Mobilizing savings into investment, and the process is known as capital formation, because we are forming capital in the process. Now here, why capital is required? Because in order to invest in the market, we need money, we need loan. Firms do borrow money in order to invest in the particular sector. So from savings to investment, first question of 2017 mains, what's the importance of savings in the economy? Understand the concept very clearly. If you know the concept, you can make the answer, because you are reading newspaper daily. You have points, but it's just correlation, interconnection. So savings into investment. So this process is known as capital formation. So first of all, if we'll discuss that the saving rate in India is high, is this statement is correct? Yes. What are the factors affecting saving rate, high saving rate in India? We can say India is a high income country, medium income country, or low income country? Medium income country. We have medium income people living in our country. What we can say, middle class. And we are experiencing high saving rate. And on the other hand, we are saying Indian economy is running on the basis of consumption-led growth. Getting my point? 3 points, interconnections. First one, India is a medium income country, or India has a lot of population of middle class people. Second one, high saving rate. How will you justify middle class people saving more? And then on the other hand, government is saying that Indian economy is a consumption-led economy, consumption-driven economy. कुछ भी हो जाए, we consume. Oppo, Vivo came into Indian market. They flooded with the new smartphones. What happened? Market share of Oppo and Vivo has been increasing. Again, it has been increasing. It has been on rise. India is a consumption-led economy. How will you justify this statement? Correlation between these three. Now take one by one. How we have to think. First one, middle income country. Saving is a habit. Saving is a habit. Like for example, everyone must have their FD account in bank. Fixed deposit होगा. आप सबका होगा. I'm not asking. आप अपने आप से पूछो. But if I talk about Demat account or mutual fund account, ठीक है? The majority of the people will not say yes, depending on your income level. But FD सबका होगा. If it is 10,000, 1 lakh or 10 lakh, depending on your income level. But why we consider fixed deposit as an important source of saving? Why we consider fixed deposit as an important source of saving? Security. So we need some kind of security of our amount. ठीक है, we will not get 12%, 13%, 14% return. But there must be a guarantee that our money will not lost in the process. So Indian mentality is we cannot gamble. If we have 100 rupees, we save around 40 rupees, 50 rupees. It means the saving rate is, current saving rate is 34%. Current saving rate is 34%. It has been coming down in the recent years. So we can write that around 29% is the saving rate according to latest economic survey. If I'll say current saving rate means of 10 years, last 10 years, because in the last decade, in 2008, saving rate is at the highest ever after independence, around 34-35%. So it is huge actually. In terms of when we compare to other countries, saving rate is one of the highest in India. Now, how will you justify that India is a consumption-led economy?
So if somebody puts his money in the demat account, then why is it not considered saving?
These are speculations. You are gambling on your money. Either you will get higher a return or you will get negative return. These are not savings, these are speculations. If reward is high, obviously risk will also go up. आपको रिस्क नहीं लेनी है, आप पैदल जा रहे हैं और आपकी स्पीड से जाना है, आपको 100-120 km per hour, किसी गाड़ी में बैठना पड़ेगा. हाई रिस्क हाई रिटर्न, you will reach your destination faster. ठीक है. Then talking about how this mobilize this saving to the investment. That is why the saving bank account holders are getting interest rate. Why? What's the difference between savings in the saving account and saving in a locker? Locker mein you will not get any return. Why? Suppose you are putting 10 lakh rupees in locker, 10 lakh rupees in saving account. So bank is mobilizing your 10 lakh rupees into loans. It means banks are using your money in order to give loans. Okay. If someone is asking 1 crore loan, it means that 1 crore banks has to arrange from its depositors. So it is a depositor's money. If bank is using that, bank has to pay to the depositors. Why demand? We can say that CASA account, current account and saving account is a demand deposit, because you can demand anytime. But if you demand your fixed deposit amount, is it possible to withdraw fixed deposit amount? Is it possible? Why? Time liability hai. So if you breach that contract, it's a contract that I am depositing my money in the fixed deposit account for 1 year. If you violate that terms and condition with banks will charge some kind of penalty by reducing your rate of return. Getting my point? You can breach that, but it will take 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe 1 day. But in deposit account, demand deposits, saving and current, you can go to ATM, you can withdraw money. That is why the difference in the interest rate of demand deposit and time deposit. So here, converting these savings into investment. That is why the interest rate they are giving. Suppose you are investing and you are borrowing money from the bank. What will you do? Bank will charge some kind of interest rate. Do you have any idea how much interest rate banks are charging? Around home loan for 12%, 10%, 8%. But how much you are getting on saving bank? 6%, very rarely. Yes Bank, Axis Bank. Their minimum limit is 10,000 rupees. So 10,000 itself in an FD. 3.5% of SBI, or more or less we can say 4% in common. So the difference banks will use as their income of mobilizing savings into investment. Now how capital will form here? Because business requires some kind of capital. And we have studied in the factors of production. Second most important factor after labor is capital. First you require labor, second one is capital. So after capital, you are borrowing from bank, investing in some kind of project. This process is known as capital formation. Clear? Okay? Then talking about investment. Investment is a major aspect of Indian economy. Why? मोदी जी हर जगह जा रहे हैं जस्ट टू ब्रिंग इन्वेस्टमेंट इन इंडिया, है ना, वो डेटा आता है ना, मोदी जी इन्वेस्टेड दिस मच अमाउंट ऑन हिज फॉरेन ट्रिप्स, बट वी आर गेटिंग फ्रूटफुल रिजल्ट्स, वो कोई नहीं बताता. What do you think? These foreign trips are fruitful or not? From economic perspective. I'm not talking about IR. उसमें तो जाना ही है, काम आए नहीं आए, लेबर से हायर लो करनी होती है. Getting my point? These are very fruitful in order to bring FDI in our country. What happened in the last 4 years? India was experiencing quite comfortable position from the external world. Oil prices were down. So government increased excise duty taxes. ठीक है, see the interrelation. ठीक, then what happened? Our external position was good. Our foreign exchange reserve reached all-time high, more than 400 billion US dollar. What happened after that? Oil prices started rising. Now there is an expectation that oil prices will go up $10 a barrel in the next fiscal. So around 74 today, it will go around 84, 85. So from 30, 35, 40 or 50 billion a dollar or a barrel, we have now reached around 75. So what happened? We need more foreign exchange reserves. Yesterday, one of the statement of Niti Aayog chief said that, deputy chairman, what he said that we are in a comfortable position. Actually, rupee appreciated in the last 5 to 10 months, but now we are getting back to the normal. So this is not a sense of worry. This is not a sign of that we should take some fruitful steps. But what is happening now? Oil prices started rising. It means it is a pressure on our foreign exchange reserves. Outflow of capital we are experiencing. Flowing of dollar from India to US again. Now what is happening? There is a pressure on India's foreign exchange reserve. That is why we need foreign investment. We have seen in the first class, inflow of dollar. That is why these foreign trips are very important. If we connect this with our domestic projects, flagship schemes like Make in India, we need investment. Why? Because we have less capital in our country. Now I got the point? Capital formation, investment. We have less capital, we have savings, high percentage of savings. But India is a developing country. We cannot use all these savings into investment, because if you invest in some project, it will have some cooling off period, some gestation period. Do you understand gestation period? It means first investment, the date of first investment, you have invested 100 crore rupees. After 4 or 5 years down the line, you will cover your cost and earn first profit. So that period from the first investment to your first profit, known as gestation period. So if India is a developing country, we cannot lock our capital for these many years. 4 or 5, I'm telling you, is a very short period in terms of infrastructure investment. What's the time period for the loan of this bullet train between Ahmedabad and Mumbai? 50 years. जिन्होंने आज साइन किया है वो रहेंगे भी नहीं जब तक लोन पूरा जाएगा. So you can understand the time period. So that is why we need investment. Last decade we have experienced around 38% of our investment, which is one of the highest in the world. Saving rate 34%. Nowadays it has been come down to 33-34% investment. I'll make you write in the paragraph form, don't worry. I'll give you these data. You remember these kind of data of inflation, GDP, so that you can use these data in your mains answer writing. It will fetch you marks. In economics answer, you need to provide data. If you are saying that India's GDP has been increasing, how? It's a vague statement. So you have to give proof. So remember a little bit of data, it will help you. ठीक है, got it? हाँ डाल जाएगी ना. But we have also middle income countries, as Sachin said. India is a middle income country. So we have lot of inequality in our country. So high income level people are spending high. What India is doing, that they are saving and they are consuming. You can do two things with the money. If your income comes, either you can save or either you can spend. But while saving, you are also mobilizing your saving into investment. Like people are taking credit to buy smartphone. लेते हैं आप, पता कीजिएगा, सुना होगा. EMI होता है ना, स्मार्टफोन पे भी तो होता है 10,000, 5,000. उससे EMI जो शुरू होता है वो फिर iPhone तक जाता है. So people are taking credit. They are saving also, but they are taking credit to purchase some kind of capital goods that will help them in the future. Getting my point? Huh. They are also investment, but they are hot money because they are not. I'll explain after the class because it will go into balance of payment chapter. Next module, next module, it will come after. But before that, I have to make your mind in terms of growth, development, basic economics. FPI and FDI, you can ask after the class. I'll explain. Consumption-led economy. That I'm explaining. So India is a consumption-led economy. There are two types of economy: investment-led economy and consumption-led economy. What's the difference? Have you ever heard about East Asian miracle? Because in the year 1990s, right after the India's reform process, East Asian miracle happened. It means the countries of East Asia, like South Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, they have experienced high growth rate in terms of investment and exports. We'll discuss in today's class, but I'll tell you in brief about East Asian countries grew on the back of investment-led growth. They've invested in their industries, manufacturing sector, and they were able to export that particular goods and services abroad. So they were earning a lot of foreign exchange reserves. By these foreign exchange reserves, they are able to develop their economy. Best example is Singapore. What was the condition of Singapore in 1950s, 60s? Now I can compare with 2018. Consider a high income country, developed country. Relatively we can say it's a small country, but still it requires a lot of effort. Small country will also face capital shortage. If a huge country like India is also experiencing capital shortage, they can also experience shortage of labor. A lot of Indian workers are working in Singapore. So there are another limitations, but East Asian miracle was the best example of investment-led growth. Now I got the point. What is investment-led growth? First you invest in secondary sector, then you will increase your production to a surplus level. It means what is the requirement of current consumption? You can produce more than that. If you produce surplus amount, it means you are creating some kind of excess capacity, excess production in your domestic economy. What will you do with that surplus production? You will export. And when you export at cheap prices, you will create demand all over the world. And if you create demand all over the world, what will happen? You will earn foreign exchange reserves so that you can import some necessary items like crude oil. That will help in running your economy. This is the example of investment-led economy. Now I'll give you example of consumption-led economy. Since 1991, India has been experiencing high growth rate.
By producing excess products, they are able to reduce demand in the economy. With the help of supply, they are creating demand.
Yes.
Demand comes first or supply?
Demand comes first. There was a law, Say's law of market, that's the core of economics. So Say's, J.B. Say was a French economist. So in the 18th century, he said that supply creates its own demand. Just listen to it, not important for GS purpose, but it's important for conceptual purpose. Supply creates its own demand. This was the notion since 1776 when Adam Smith wrote his book, The Wealth of Nations, till the year 1929, when American economy hit by the Great Depression. Till 1929, the notion was as follows, that supply creates its own demand. If I am producing 100 units of shirts, it will easily sold in the market. There will be no problem because I am producing, and while I am producing, I am generating income. Why? Because I am giving some amount of money to my labor. I am generating income. Labor is getting some kind of purchasing power so that they will purchase these 100 shirts. Not directly, they will purchase something. Some other industries' labor will purchase these shirts. So whatever you will produce, because you are generating income simultaneously, on the back of this, supply creates its own demand. It means there will be no problem of oversupply or overproduction in the market. But what happened in 1939, 1929? What happened? There was a problem of overproduction. Then one economist came to the picture, John Maynard Keynes, and he said that it was aggregate demand which is the main driver of economic growth. Aggregate demand. If I am producing 100 traditional phones, will I still say that supply creates its own demand? No. Because I am producing 100 traditional phones, it doesn't mean that I will sell these 100 traditional phones easily in the market. No. Nowadays, you will alter your production on the basis of demand. So these notions went wrong in the year 1929. मैं बता रहा हूँ, thought सुनो, from 1776 to 1929, all the economists were thinking in the same direction. Supply creates its own demand. I'll justify your statement. Then in 1929, what happened? Reverse happened. Aggregate demand. What is aggregate demand? वो मैं आपको बताना नहीं चाह रहा, but simple है. Where demand and supply matches, where your income and consumption matches. Getting my point? So from 1929, we can say in 1933 they found these kind of activities, so they have increased aggregate demand. Then what happened till 1973? This notion was very much in the main discussion of economists. But what happened in 1973? American economy experienced stagflation. Stagflation. We'll discuss in this class in the last 15 minutes. What is stagflation? Because Indian economy also experienced from 2008 to 2013 the problem of stagflation. So at 1973, OPEC crisis, oil crisis. Do you remember this crisis? Thoda bahut idea. Petrol prices was on rise due to Gulf War, 6 days war of 1967, I guess. 6-day war. Then 1973, again the gas shortage in America they've experienced. So stagflation. It means at that time, from 1963, when John F. Kennedy was the President of the United States, he started reforming American economy on the basis of aggregate demand. If there is less production, he said that we should give money to the people so that it will increase their purchasing power, so that they will be able to buy goods and services from the economy. But what happened after that? If they are giving money to the people, growth is your stagnant. Why? Because your demand is low. So growth obviously will stagnate. If your demand is stable, you will not produce more. Getting my point? If your demand is stable, your production will cut short. You will not produce more because your demand is not increasing. What will happen? You will give more money to the people. People are saying that economy is down. They will not spend right now. They will save because economy is down. You need food before any other thing. Then again production will go down. They will cut production. Again the demand will go down. Why? Why demand will go down? Because economy is experiencing stagnation. Stagnation means stand still. It is not growing. On the other hand, if the policy maker says that give some money to the people, free mein, what will happen? People will get purchasing power. After that, they will get extra money, they will spend in the economy, and economy will revive. That was the main idea in 1963. But 1973, what happened? Oil prices rose. अब वो एडवांस लेवल चला जाएगा, but ठीक है, I'll explain. 1973 oil prices rose, supply side constraints are there, and what happened to demand? Demand उतनी रही. So economy is stagnant and you are experiencing inflation. If you are saying create more demand, there is more inflation. but your economy is stagnant. So नई problem आ गई. So then again the supply side economics will come into the picture. So demand and supply. This is the major law of this economics. If you understand demand and supply, let me tell you, there are a lot of professors who don't know about demand and supply application, not about basics, but their application is applicable in every aspect of the country. If you experience in your personal life, demand and supply will work. आप किसी के घर रोज पहुंच जाओ, it means supply is more. वो नहीं चाह रहा कि आप रोज आओ उसके. Getting my point? So demand supply will function in every aspect. So what happened? At that time, supply side economics comes into the picture. Again, demand and supply. So that's the main notion. They will, or finally, we have to achieve equilibrium. So where equilibrium set is the main market price. Okay? So what we were discussing? Investment. So to get the idea of investment, how investment is important. So I'll make you write. Another last point left, technological aspects. Human capital and technological aspects. So human capital, what do you understand by human capital? Ability of the skills. So first one, when we consider human capital, we have two major important factors, education and health. Okay? These are the two major important aspects of human capital. If a labor force is educated and healthy, now you can experience good growth. Like demographic dividend, we are always talking about demographic dividend. But India is experiencing demographic dividend. If I say that, is India reaping the benefits of demographic dividend? Is India reaping the benefits of demographic dividend? What will you say? It will come in the main question. मैं बता रहा हूँ, from 2 years, 3 years कभी भी आ सकता है. Because we are going in a wrong direction. We have demographic dividend. What is demographic dividend? Shall I explain? Demographic dividend is simple when your ratio of young population is more than your dependent population. So your working population, 15 to 59 years of age. This is your working population. Your dependent population is and 59 to life expectancy jo bhi. So this is your dependent population. If your working population is more in terms of dependent population, it means you are experiencing a positive sign in your demography. Demography means study of population. Now what we will say, if the percentage of this bracket is more in terms of these working population, we will say this is your demographic dividend. Because till the year 30, we say that labor force is productive. Obviously, most of the upper limit of examination is 30 years, 28 years, maybe 32 years. So after 30 years, stagnancy will come. So from 15 to 30, we have huge population. Around 35% of India's population belongs to this age bracket. Now the question arises, what about the status of education and health here? Education and health. We have RTE. We have other health programs, National Health Mission, Ayushman Bharat. But is this enough to make our demographics a dividend? What is dividend? A positive return on your investment. So if India is lucky in terms of this, your demographics, is India reaping the benefits of demographic dividend? No. Or we are getting at a slow pace. We are not providing enough education. We are still focusing on primary education. But higher education is also an important aspect. See the conditions of other schools, government colleges. So this demographic dividend is important in terms of human capital. So human capital considers two things. Remember by heart, education and health. Your population should be healthy. India eradicated polio. It's a good sign in terms of human capital. We are also thinking about eradicating tuberculosis by the year 20, हाँ 2030. India is thinking about eradicating tuberculosis by 2030. So these are the few targets which will work in the favor of human capital. America is very much rich in the terms of human capital because जितने Nobel Prize मिलते हैं, you can see from 200 and 250 Nobel Prize winners, around 80% belongs to America, United States America. Human capital. Why? Because of human capital. You can build machinery, you can build space exploration sites, you can build NASA, you can build anything. First you require labor, and your labor should be skilled. So this is the major factor in terms of economic growth and development. So if the question comes about savings, investment or economic growth, development, you have to write this point. Now nowadays soft skills is the major skill among an individual. Why? Soft skills are the requirement of service-based industries. And service-based industries are contributing 60% to India's GDP. Getting my point? So we need soft skills. What are those skills? Soft skills are communication skills, body language, or skills to think, to make decisions, to take tough decisions. These are the things. Getting my point? Human capital. Any doubt in this point? What is human capital? How we will increase or how we will use this efficiently in the development of India? Okay. Last is technological aspects, technological development. If we say that apart from capital formation, the second most important aspect is technology. Second most important aspect is technology. Like for example, I'm addressing around these many students, but with the help of internet, with the same level of energy, I can address whole nation, like Prime Minister is doing video conferencing. It will save our cost because in some situation, Prime Minister is not visiting that place. In the occasion of opening ceremony of some metro, opening ceremony of some hall, etc. So with the help of technology, we are able to save enough resources, valuable resources. If we consider technology in terms of our economic structure, technology in communication, it has been immensely helpful for India, technology in communication, because from traditional telephones to mobile phones to smartphones and nowadays internet. So on our fingertips, we can communicate from India to America, India to any other place, just because of internet. So it is a technological revolution in the 21st century. Technology in terms of, we can say, infrastructure. So before, we can say before Second World War, we were able to build around 10 or 15 stories building. But nowadays with the help of crane, that is part of technological upgradation, we can build 40 floors, 50 floors, 100 floors. Even if you go Hong Kong and these, they have around 500 floors. Just because of the help of technology. Drone technology is very helpful in agriculture sector. Like in America and Canada, they have farms of 200 acres. So how will you control these farms, these large farms? With the help of technology. Like in the crash course, I've given one example that when they rear their animal, they have their GPS in their neck. So goats, sheep, they have GPS in their neck so that they can track their animal. They are using drone. China is using drone to compensate the losses to the farmers from hailstorm. I've told you one day, I guess. In China, if there was a hailstorm in night, if some farmer or some field experienced hailstorm in night, tomorrow morning you will get compensation in your account. What's the case in our country? रात में नींद नहीं आएगी. So this is the big advantage of technology in terms of growth and development. You can think from any perspective, any sector. Economics में सोचने का तरीका I'll tell you. First, remember the sectors. Yesterday and day before yesterday, I was repeatedly saying primary, secondary, tertiary, agriculture, fisheries, then mining, manufacturing, construction. Then in services, we have public administration, hotel, restaurant, banking services. So remember all these sectors. We can think from these dimensions. In banking industry, for example, technology is helpful. How? You can imagine going to a bank in 1919, 2000, then again in 2005, 2006, then again in 2017, 18. Nowadays, hardly you have to visit bank. Internet banking, IMPS, NEFT, these are technology. You can transfer funds. So people are carrying less cash. If we don't have ATMs, we have to carry more cash. Means more risk and more cost to the government. Getting my point? With the help of technology, we can transfer money via mobile phone. So you can think from any perspective. In public administration, can you give me an example of technological upgradation? E-governance, best example. Yes, cashless transactions. Okay, that belongs to banking industry, but e-governance is the best example of using government portal. Nowadays, government is introducing a bill. They will throw that bill into public for a discussion of 15 days, 10 days. Then they will receive some kind of comments. They will analyze those comments and incorporate those important and valuable points from the society's perspective into that particular bill or any amendment. So you have to think like this. क्योंकि मेंस में मैं बताऊं आपको, you have 20 questions. You will know 12 to 14 questions directly. आपने बहुत अच्छे से पढ़ाई की है फिर भी, but you will not get those 6 questions extra. मेंस का आप टेस्ट देते होंगे, मेंस की टेस्ट सीरीज. What will you find? First question बन गया, second छोड़ना पड़ा. The beauty of that answer booklet you can attempt later. But you will get around 12 to 14 questions directly. But you have to make 6 to 7 questions in that particular 3 hours. वो कब होगा? When you study like this. Mind में picture बना लो. Like I have to think on these perspective. I'll make you write all the sector. Flow chart बना लो. Agriculture. If I'm writing, suppose if I'm writing answer on drought. What will you consider? Drought is the question from geography, disaster management or economy? Science and tech भी हो सकता है. If you incorporate 1 or 2 sentences, it will go into historical perspective also. Major drought of 1944. Famine, Bengal famine, 1944. So you cannot segregate answers. You have to think from every aspect. Like drought. How will it connect drought with economic aspect? Yeah, tell me one by one. Tell me one by one. Drought with economy. It affects the economic activity. It affects the agriculture production. How you will connect drought with environment? Take it. Drought with geography? Yes. Any other? Rain shadow regions. Deficit in monsoon. Talking about disaster management. Drought and disaster management. Drought is one kind of disaster, we can say. After flood, we have extreme situation of drought. So it is a disaster. How you will connect drought with social issues? Suicide, farmer suicide. Now I got my point. How you have to write the answer. Content चाहिए उनको बस, और कुछ नहीं चाहिए. So you have to analyze. Economic answer ऐसे ही बनता है. You cannot mug up. So you think from another perspective and correlate all the facts and figures. So are we clear about these technological aspects? Do you have any doubt in all these 4 points, 5 points? No? ठीक है. Although these looks like very small points, but they have large dimensions. ठीक है. So I'll make you write after non-economic factors. So you write heading non-economic factors. This is a second subheading. Under factors affecting growth and development, we have economic factors and non-economic factors. First one you write political factors. First one you will write political factors. Second one, social factors. Third one is religion. Next one, cultural factors. That's it.